This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass.
This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the Monday Night Raw review on this Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. Thank you to all of you who are listening right now. I really do appreciate all of you, as many options. There are many options in the wrestling space of podcasting, and you're choosing to spend some of your time with me, and I appreciate that because, we aren't exactly the biggest podcast, but I think we're slowly trending that way, and maybe you'll be along for the ride as we get going and continue to grow. And speaking of those that are joining us, I want to welcome some new patrons, or I think it's singular, might be just patron, to the show. As I pull his name up, let's see. So over the last day, we've had Dante Santiago join us. So Dante, welcome to the WWE Podcast. I hope you enjoy your ad-free experience, and you can join Dante at patreon.com/WWE Podcast and go ad-free. All right. Well, the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournaments are finally coming to a close as we get closer and closer to Saturday's PLE in the beloved country of Saudi Arabia. We will finally have a winner of both men and women, and what it means, we don't know. What this will mean for those winners' careers, we don't know. Does it mean nothing? Maybe. Does it mean a bunch? Maybe. My guess is it's something in between that we remember for like a month, and then if they don't adopt British accents and play dress up for 5 to 6 months, it'll fade quickly and they'll go back to whatever they were doing. There doesn't seem to be anything on the line other than bragging rights, other than something to tack onto your resume. There's no title opportunity. There's no future title opportunity. There's no championship you're winning outright. It's just a bragging right. It's a feather in your cap is what it is for King and Queen of the Ring. Now, maybe things change this year, as this has been one of the longest form tournaments we've seen, and not just for King of the Ring, but really any format for any championship. I would argue that the winner of this tournament for both men and women have had to win more matches in a row and more big matches to win a tournament that essentially has no prize than to actually earn an opportunity at an actual championship. Because sometimes people are plucked from thin air. All they have to do is win like a single triple threat or a singles match, and they earn an opportunity for a world title, a U.S. title, an intercontinental title. It just seems like so much more work is being put into a prize that doesn't really have any substance than when compared to an actual championship that are really more easily awarded. You don't have to go through a long form tournament and win 4 matches straight or 5 matches straight, whatever it is it works out to be. You just, attack the champion, which is always a tried and true formula, or you have to win a single match, like one match, and you're in. But I'm not trying to disparage what this means. WWE is trying to really do a good job and do everything they can to make this feel like a big deal. They do nice recaps that make it feel sports-like. The sports simulation effort and vision for WWE has really changed since Kevin Dunn and Vince left and his team. It feels much more sports simulated, and that's what I like. That's what we want, I think. And I think generally they've done as good of a job as you could possibly do with this. For something that really doesn't have a ton of value, I mean, it just doesn't. They've done a nice job of making it appear that there is. It's almost like a mirage. At the end of the road, you know how sometimes on hot days, on long stretches of road, it looks like there's water there or oil or something on the road, and then you get there and there's nothing there. The heat coming off the pavement creates like a mirage effect. It's like that. They're speeding towards this goal that they don't know really what it is, but they want to see it, and then they get there and there's nothing. Kind of feels like that. Now they'll be awarded with these pretend crowns, which I'm sure are actually fairly high quality. I'm not saying they're from the toy store, but they're going to be awarded with these crowns and probably scepters, and again, hopefully not an automatic British accent, but they'll be awarded with these things, and perhaps a babyface wins it this year. I was surprised that Gunther won the match to end Raw. That really did surprise me. Now, if he wins King of the Ring, cool. I think he is a great candidate for King of the Ring. He's a heel. He would fit the King persona perfectly. And I think it would be a nice thing to tack onto his already illustrious resume. And I like that. Now, the question is, does it or is it next week Randy Orton or Tama Tonga? We will see. I would imagine that Randy Orton is the guy he will face, but I thought it was going to be Jey versus Tama Tonga. I ended up being incorrect. That obviously is not the match now, as Jey Uso loses yet again on Raw. Another big match where it's Jey seems to be in a spot where he has a ton of crowd support. He can earn the opportunity to have a big match. It's just winning that match he can't seem to do. When it really matters, he can't win. Now, that's going to change eventually. Eventually, I think they'll award him and reward him with a world title run at some point in his career, maybe even next year, or, because I just don't see it this year, but it's not out of the realm of impossibility. It just doesn't seem like the cards are right for him right now, but he is one of the biggest babyfaces on Raw. And I just feel like every time you see Jey out there, you're like, yeah, he'll put on a hell of a performance. He'll get to that big match. He'll earn the big match and then lose the big match. So that'll eventually change, as I said, and I have no concerns about him. This isn't me worried about him falling down the card, losing his career. No. I think Jey Uso is in a very enviable position. I could do without 48 super kicks per match, as many of you also, I think, would concur, but he is a hell of an athlete. He does have a nice presence. He can cut good promos. He's got all the tools. All of the tools. And here's the thing, too. I think he's about to be drugged back into the Bloodline story probably later on this year, as he likely joins forces with Roman Reigns and his brother to try to take down what Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa and Tangaloa and maybe Jacob Fatu, who maybe joins Roman, or we'll see where he lands. And then The Rock's coming back. Like, that whole mess is coming. And so Jey has to be kind of freed up for that. Now, when does that strike? Is it SummerSlam? Is it Survivor Series? Definitely one of those two. We will see. But a reunion of sorts with the Bloodline, the OG Bloodline, is coming. We've seen them all fight. There's nothing left to do there. Jimmy has fought Jey. Jey's fought Jimmy. Jimmy's fought Roman. Roman's fought Jimmy. It's all been done and it's gone. Like, there's nothing left to do. So you don't have to worry about someone turning on the other person or anything. That's all come and gone. The Civil War on that end has ended. So maybe they're freeing Jey up to be ready for this long-term battle down the line this year. But at some point, even after that's over, you got to give Jey a title. You got to give him a singles run with even the Intercontinental title. You could have him do, but he's not even in the hunt for the Intercontinental title right now, because you have Bronson Reed, who's done a nice job of feeling relevant. And you have Chad Gable, who's also doing career work right now as a total D-bag heel. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. But we'll have the preview and prediction show later this week for you, as it is a PLE week already, it just blows my mind. And then it's a quick turnaround, I think 3 weeks. And then we're in Scotland, right? So we have another PLE coming after that. And then Money in the Bank to follow. And then SummerSlam, which I believe, is SummerSlam in July this year? I got to check on that. I remember it being super early. It might be like the first week of August. So I remember it's crazy early. And then WrestleMania this coming year, WrestleMania 41, is super late. It's like 3 weeks late this year. But, it's not really too much of a It's not much of a big deal one way or the other. It just doesn't feel right when it's not in the same week that you always are used to it being in. So, all right, well, let's dive into Monday Night Raw as we do every week here. And let's see, we've got Iyo Sky arriving at the building. Michael Cole had a flub already. Oh, it's Jey Uso. Iyo Sky, who got out of a Lamborghini. And they're all shown arriving at the arenas, which again is just a much more sports simulation type of feel, and that's what they're going for post the Vince McMahon era is the sports simulation, and I like that, seeing them arrive in clothes and just their street clothes. They're not always in ring gear. Gunther in an empty arena in his street clothes. It's just it humanizes them. It's like all you think of them as. Usually is just in their ring gear, in the ring, or cutting a promo in their ring gear. It's nice to see them in a different environment, just kind of their natural habitat, if you will. Even for heels, it's nice to see. It adds a different layer. So I'm enjoying seeing them arrive at the arenas and do these kind of it seems like such a small, insignificant thing. And then when you watch it, you don't even realize how much of a big deal that is until you come out of it and you're like, you realize I like this, right? It feels like I'm watching a sporting event. So, all right, we are going to continue as, let's see, Sami Zayn opens the show, and he says he has a very personal issue with Gable for suplexing him in front of his wife and father, and Zayn said Gable has an ass kicking coming his way. He said that things aren't personal between him and Reed, and he just wants to simply take the Intercontinental Championship. Zayn said it's a battle of mind, body, and soul, with Gable being the mind, Reed being the body, and Zayn being the soul. And he said he would put his money on soul every single time, and it's the soul that has helped him win the title and would help him retain it on Saturday. So Sami Zayn is a very likable guy on camera, I think, and one of the best in-ring wrestlers that WWE has had, and I still believe, after all this time, he should have been the one to take the belt off of Roman at last year's Chamber in Montreal in February of 23. I will continue to say that, even after everything that's played out. I still believe it, because that's when you want to pull the trigger. But my point about this promo, it was good. I see the analogy that he's making here, very much a prepared statement, but that's fine. It's the analogy, I think, still hit. I could do without Zayn screaming all the time, though. It feels like he gets worked up so quickly in his promos that within 15 seconds, he's already yelling. And I don't mind passion. I don't mind confidence. I don't mind energy. But when you do it every time and it takes you from 0 to 115 seconds, it's kind of overwhelming in a way. Again, Zayn's very talented. I just feel like Sami Zayn is constantly screaming in his promos, much like kind of Dolph Ziggler did. But Chad Gable comes out with Alpha Academy, Otis, Akira Tozawa, and Maxine. Gable says he's been too damn nice the way he selflessly trained Zayn for WrestleMania, and that he's been way too nice to Zayn and these, quote, 3 clowns behind me. Then he dressed down Dupree, Tozawa for blowing their recent chances, and then he focused on Otis. The crowd was chanting for Otis, and Gable said Otis blew it last week with Zayn and called him one of the biggest disappointments on the planet. And Zayn said, Alpha Academy, how much longer are you going to put up with this crap? And I enjoyed it. I mean, waiting to see when Otis finally snaps, and really Akira Tozawa and Maxine Dupree, the ticking time bomb that really is Otis is the one that everyone seems to be focused on, and rightly so. Otis eventually will snap, eventually will take out Gable, and it's going to be a fun moment. The key with that is, though, what's the end game with Otis? Are you trying to push him to an Intercontinental title opportunity? Are you trying to push him into a world title contention discussion? Not win it, but contention. Or is this just simply something fun for Otis to do, and we'll see how far it takes you and then take it step by step? I think it's probably that. But it's going to be fun because the crowd it seems to be very much invested in Otis. They seem to be very much invested in wanting to see someone finally punch him in the mouth with all the physical and verbal abuse that he has spewed out over the last several weeks. And this storyline did need attention. It had been kind of forgotten, it feels like, for a little while. And they resurrected this perfectly, or at least, gave it a shot of adrenaline that it needed. Gable playing his part, as he always does, very well. Gable is, do I dare say, more fun as a heel than he is as a babyface? Do I dare say that? Gable is a beloved babyface because he's undersized. He's kind of the common man. He's an immediate underdog just inherently because of his size. But this kind of smarmy, big mouth little guy, there is something to be said for that. It kind of reminds me in a roundabout way, not identically. Remember the FBI in Nunzio? You guys remember Nunzio? Maybe some of you do, some of you don't. I know a lot of you out there are like, yeah, my God, I haven't heard that name, right? Nunzio was the loudmouth of the group, the leader of this FBI, the full-blooded Italians is what it actually stood for, not the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So it was an Italian group, and Nunzio was the loudmouth of this group, and it kind of reminds me of that, except he doesn't dress down and berate his team. So that's the difference, but the size comparison is really what I'm after here. And I think the storyline's going as well as it could, and I'm all for this one. And the triple threat on Saturday should be also a lot of fun. So we'll have to see how that plays out, and you'll hear my official predictions later this week. So we got Chad Gable versus Sami Zayn. Really nice match, as I would expect, and you would expect, a 16-minute match where Gable defeated, in a non-title match, Sami Zayn. And the storyline here wasn't really Gable winning. I mean, that is a big deal, beating the champion, but it's how he won, with Otis hesitantly striking Sami, and then Maxine having moral quandaries in her mind about whether I help him or hurt him. What do I do? While Gable continues to say, everyone, you guys are nothing, right, without me. And then he tries to kick out his own members with Akira Tozawa and Maxine. And, it's just a very fun, easy to understand story. Was I surprised to see Otis hit Zayn? Yes. But that kind of got froze, or rather, it kind of got resolved later in the show with Sami Zayn and Otis having a conversation backstage, and Otis saying, I'm sorry. Sami saying, I know you are. And then we have Chad Gable telling Otis to reaffirm his pledge to him. Right, with Otis saying, whatever it takes. And it's so funny seeing the little guy be the bully. It's almost worse and more unlikable when they are, because they have a loud mouth and they can't back it up. And then it's I don't know how to explain it. It is more antagonizing to me with a little guy being the bully than the big guy, in a way. But all right, let's continue here as we have Braun Breaker versus Kale Dixon. This ended in 1 minute and 40 seconds because the referee called it off. Braun Breaker is pulling a Goldberg here. Spear, destruction. He has obviously a much larger arsenal of maneuvers, but they're going the Goldberg route here, but to the extreme where he's actually injuring people on purpose. And that's the part that, to me, saved this segment from being a big stinker. And the reason I say that is if Braun Breaker had just speared this guy, Kale Dixon, and won the match, it would have been a squash match. Well, okay, we've seen this way. How many times when Braun Strowman was coming up did we see him just do squash match after squash match? I mean, it must have been hundreds, it felt like. And it got boring after a while. And remember him saying, I want competition. Right? And I think they don't want to revisit that with Braun Breaker, who's got much more to offer from an in-ring perspective. And I think that the destruction part of it and spearing Kale and going for injury and have Kale be stretchered out where most people didn't even know his name before the bell rang was effective. It was, I think, very effective. And Braun Breaker is now out to hurt people. We kind of understand a little bit more who and what Braun Breaker is about. So, all right. Now, we did get another spear by Braun Breaker. Was it on Ricochet? I think it was on Ricochet. So, I think Braun Breaker speared Ricochet later in the show, too. All of this over not including him in the King of the Ring tournament. All right. So, we got a video package recapping the quarterfinals. All right. We've done that. Been there, done that. Lyra Valkyria versus Iyo Sky in a Queen of the Ring semifinal match. Very nice. Easily the best match of the night for the women. And arguably in the top 3 matches, including the men. And this was a very good match. Again, it's such a frustrating thing when you see Iyo Sky have the best version of herself when she's not champion. And they had all this, they had so much they could have done with her, and they just kind of put the title on her and then told her to go hide under a blanket for 6 months. And you see what she can do here. And same with Lyra Valkyria here, she, I'll get it out, did a very nice job as well. Didn't feel like she was rusty or that she didn't belong. Her and Iyo had a very nice, nearly 20-minute match. Let me just put that in perspective. A lot of the women's matches over the last several months have been 1.5 to 2 minutes long. Rounding out, that means this match where it went 20 minutes was nearly 10 times the length of the average women's match not too long ago. But it was deserving of every minute. These two women, especially Iyo, who just continues to shine, did a nice job. Iyo loses this match, though, fair and square, after Lyra did a counter that ended up with her, pinning her shoulders down with her knees and getting the 3 count. And it's a nice surprise. It was surprising to see Iyo Sky lose that. I think they're moving towards an Iyo Sky babyface turn, perhaps. We'll see. The fans definitely see, I think, what I see in that Iyo Sky is better in the ring than all of us remember. And she's shown it ever since she lost the belt. So that might have been the best thing that's ever happened to her. Was losing the damn title to Bayley, who in her own right hasn't done anything. What is she getting in scraps backstage with Piper Niven? I mean, Bayley has done, this is not her own fault, it's creative. They have done absolutely nothing with Bayley. It's frustrating when you get a babyface tag team or singles championship, get to that mountain, finally climb it at WrestleMania, you win it, you get there, and then the WWE goes, okay, now what do we do? It feels very much like that at times. So I'm not concerned about Bayley. It's not the level of red alert, but it's noteworthy that they haven't really done much with Bayley. So. All right. Guys, I know I'm skipping interviews, right? Like where Jackie Redmond tried to talk to Valkyria, that kind of thing. But we'll get there. I mean, the one thing is, since I am reading that right now, and I did see it on the Hulu version, Jackie Redmond did interview Valkyria, who gave a very stomach-churning babyface promo of, the key is believing. Really? Is the key you just have to believe? That's the key? You just have to believe. Not believe, I know. Believe. That's the key? That's all you need? So if I just sit here and I'm just like, I believe I have $1 million. I believe I have $1 million. I believe I have $1 million. Wait, I believe? Why isn't it here? Right? I'm sorry. I don't mean to take it into what is it? What do they call it? Captain Literal Man. Right? I don't mean to actually be that guy, but it's just it's such a 80s say your prayers, take your vitamins narrative of all you have to do is believe. Stop. Lyra Valkyria, as good as she is in the ring, on the mic, she has annoyed the hell out of me over the last several weeks. But somebody on the women's side topped that crown, top that achievement for me on Monday Night Raw, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. We did get Dragunov interviewed by Kayla Braxton backstage, and he said there's no shame into losing to Jey Uso from last week. And he spoke of how Gunther broke him several times, and Ricochet showed up and said that just because Dragunov got the best of him once doesn't mean it's over. And then that's where, Braun Breaker speared Ricochet into some production crates. And so it looks like we're going to get a Braun Breaker Ricochet program, and hey, that's fine. Better than having Ricochet on Speed, the show. I don't know. I really don't think that show is going to take off. No pun intended. All right. The reason is you have a title for a show that's all about cruiserweights and speed and how fast they can perform. You're telling me that, and I'm sure for Ricochet and others that don't normally get the spotlight, this is a blessing in disguise because, you're not really on the main roster. You're not involved in the main product. You're not involved in any really main storylines, and most of the audience doesn't watch the damn show. But from an outlet perspective, I'm sure for the talent, they love it. But you have a show named after the one massive problem as a industry right now. In other words, you have a show called Speed, and you even have a championship for Speed. And to me, I think others. I feel like I'm not trying to talk for a lot of the listeners and fans today. I really am not. I know I've said a lot today. Oh, I think this, and I believe other people believe this. It's just my guess. I just seem to have a knack for a lot of what the general wrestling fan is thinking. I pride myself on having a finger on the pulse. Not that everyone agrees, but just generally. Now, before I got on that weird tirade, my point was that I think one of the biggest problems with pro wrestling is the speed of the matches, which is what this whole show highlights, and even in the name of the show. So we have a champion of who's the fastest, right? Which is the actual issue with wrestling today. One of the issues with wrestling today is the matches are too damn fast. So I'm sure Ricochet would come on here and vehemently disagree and tell me all of the wonderful and amazing superhuman things he can do in the ring, which are quite amazing, but I think he's missing the point. It's, Mr. Ricochet, who seems to have the maturity of a sophomore in high school. And I'm taking shots at him because, look, he's supposed to be on paper anyway, a professional athlete in WWE. He's a professional. You're a public figure. And he gets himself in these Twitter wars, and he acts like a child on social media. He's telling people to do better. Let me tell you something. Anybody that tells me that phrase and it says that phrase to me, it to me is everything I need to know about you from an ideological perspective. The do better phrase is one of the worst and annoying phrases that the human species has concocted over the last several years. There's a lot more that I don't like either, but that's one of them. And he's using those phrases and just the way he acts on social media is just childish. It's as if there is seriously a teenager who has hacked his account and decided to post on his behalf. It's embarrassing. I mean, it just is. When I got my little spat with him, he had no intelligent argument to come back. I mean, to really just have a healthy civil debate about the fact that, sometimes it's more, it's not just about the moves in the ring. There's, fans want something deeper and something more. And he laughs at that. He rolls his eyes. Are you disagreeing? But now, hey, you found your environment. You have found your environment in the realm of speed where you can just worry about going as fast as you possibly can because that's what the name of the show is. So, and your champion over there in a small pond, Mr. He's really a small fish in a small pond, but we'll see. You know what? We'll see what he does with Braun Breaker. I'm taking shots at him, and he's probably a little bit salty because his girlfriend's more over than he is. But I will say that he does have talent. He absolutely does, and we saw flashes of it with his feud with Logan Paul earlier last year. So there is something there, but he seems to, be lacking some of the basic understanding of what makes pro wrestling really good, and it's not just about the moves in the ring and all the crazy stuff you can do. I feel like I shouldn't have to be saying this to a guy that's actually in the industry and actually a part of a show that is viewed worldwide. But anyway, let's move on. Let's just get to the stuff while you're here. And I'm here to have me dress down a wrestler. Again, much respect for Ricochet, but it just from a personal perspective, he seems like a child, So he can be two things at once. Very good athlete, incredibly athletically gifted, but also a child mentally. At least that's what I see. I could be totally wrong, but I'm only going on what I have seen. Okay, moving on. We have, let's see, Dragunov again, who he's getting minutes on TV. That's good. His loss last week to Jey didn't hurt him. I think it's just getting him established in the minds of fans is where they're at. We then have, let's see, Carlito, who's still trying to make good with the Judgment Day, and Damian Priest, who continues to tell Carlito he has to earn his time here, earn his spot. And so he ends up failing that mission later in the show. But actually, well, no. Well, let's talk about it now. We got The Miz and R-Truth versus Balor and McDonough for the World Tag Team titles. And it was a 10-minute match that ended with Miz and R-Truth beating Balor and McDonough and retaining their tag titles. And it was all due to Braun Strowman coming down, and he tossed Carlito into the barricade. Strowman chased McDonough around the ring. McDonough went inside to avoid Strowman, but Truth hoisted him up and hit the AA and got the victory. So we're still on the Miz and R-Truth tag team title bandwagon. I think we're getting close to, the final destination with that. But, as long as it lasts, we should enjoy it. And Strowman, again, I don't know what Strowman's doing. I find him very boring, or I should say one-dimensional. He's been one-dimensional for a long time, but he plays his role very well. And the crowd gets involved in it. The crowd seems to be behind Strowman, and that's good. And Strowman, why he's targeting the people he's targeting, I don't know. But he is the foil right now for the Judgment Day, who will try to exact revenge next week. And I believe next week that there'll be a Braun Strowman versus JD McDonough matchup. And I think we'll know how that's going to end, which I would imagine it's going to end with a beatdown of the Judgment Day. Or Strowman's going to win, but then he'll get beat down quickly by the Judgment Day, I would think. So, Braun Strowman, I don't know what his direction is in the company right now. I'm not quite clear on that. But he's a big guy who can carry a match. His promos aren't the best, but he certainly is an asset to the company. There's no doubt about that, despite my personal feelings. Okay, so then we get Becky Lynch, who congratulated Lyra as they crossed paths in the hallway. And then the camera stayed with Valkyria, who was greeted by Liv Morgan. And Morgan said she was surprised that Valkyria didn't have Lynch help her again like last week. And then she says, "Speak of the devil." And Valkyria turned to look for Lynch and was instead hit by a punch from Liv Morgan, who repaid the favor from last week with Valkyria attacking Liv from behind. So, which is kind of odd that the heel is exacting revenge on the babyface for the babyface attacking from behind, but it all still works. It all still works here. And this is where Becky Lynch comes out and gets an in-ring promo and said that she's dealing with a very different Liv Morgan. Lynch was then interrupted by Liv Morgan, who walked onto the stage and took issue with Lynch, insinuating that she was afraid to fight. And Morgan said the only thing she cares about is completing the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour. And then Lynch spoke about how she wrote a book about her purpose and how she wants to leave the WWE better than she found it. And Lynch said Morgan's purpose is revenge, and then what happens next? Right? If she gets it, then what? Morgan said she was embarrassed for Lynch for talking about how she broke barriers, and Morgan called Lynch the most selfish person in the company and said the only thing she cares about is herself. She said that after she completes the revenge tour, she's going to sit on top of the division as a new champion. And Lynch said Morgan can't trick the people who know who know that she gives her best for them, and that she came looking for a fight, and Morgan obviously was teased that she was going to and then didn't. You know, this wasn't the best exchange, and I've seen better. And it was, Morgan didn't have a spectacular night, but I really, over the last couple of months, have really enjoyed this new version of Liv that we're getting. She feels much more comfortable on the microphone. She kind of is really locking into who and what, she is as a character. She's really starting to find her own. And Lynch is continuing to spin her wheels and pander to the crowd. I'm here to give it everything, right, guys? You guys love me for giving it everything in the ring, right? I mean, stop the pain, please. And, the only person this week that was more insufferable on the microphone was Mercedes Moné, or i.e. Sasha Banks. I really, I'm picking kind of random people here that I'm having issues with this week. But here's another one. Mercedes Moné, who's obviously not in WWE, but rather in AEW. Known as Sasha Banks in WWE, obviously known as Mercedes Moné, who's now graduated from boss to CEO. I don't know who gave her that promotion, but they should be fired as well. Let me just say this about Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné. Same person. Mercedes. That's her real name. Extremely talented in the ring. Her promos are horrid. I have never been, in WWE or otherwise, been a fan of Sasha Banks in a promo or in an interview segment on the Unbroken Skull sessions with Stone Cold Steve Austin. She was even insufferable there. And I know there's people who are massive fans of Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné that listen to this show. And, more power to you. I know we have, Kyle from Baltimore. Is that right? I think Kyle from Baltimore is a big Sasha Banks fan, right? You come to mind. And if you love Sasha, awesome. Cool. I'm not trying to start a war with Sasha Banks fans or Mercedes Moné fans. Not at all. I really am not. My point about bringing her up is the more I watch her in AEW with no leash, the more I am glad WWE didn't get her and didn't need her. Not that I don't think she's an asset to a company in name value, but she has, in the last several weeks in AEW, really just stink out the joint with promos. She's insufferable on the microphone. She's so impressed with herself. She's got this, and it doesn't matter if she's playing babyface or heel or doing an actual shoot promo or shoot interview like with Stone Cold Steve Austin a year or two ago. She can't not think about herself. It's like she can't talk normally. She's got always an annoying kind of cadence to her voice. She's just so impressed with herself. And I'm not talking about in character as a heel doing a good job of that. I'm talking about just as a person. Go watch stuff on her YouTube or on her Twitch, or I don't even know if she has a Twitch, on Twitter or X, Instagram, especially. The way that she talks, and she's in her hotel room just like talking to fans or whatever, and she just even there can't come across like a normal human being. She has such an annoying innate quality about her, and I don't even know if she's self-aware enough to notice. But I never was a massive Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné fan that I said, oh my God, they got to get her. WWE's got to get her. Oh my God. No, never. So that's my own personal feeling on her. But The reason I brought that up is the only person who was more insufferable this week on the mic, besides Becky, was Mercedes over in AEW. But Becky Lynch, hey, I know it got Becky Lynch fans out there. She's an incredible talent, but she's been riding the same horse, talking about the man has come around to Greensboro. And we're all supposed to say, yay, they said the name of my city, right? Cheap pops. But, that's anyone can get that. But she's saying the same things, doing the same things. I feel like I'm just watching Becky Lynch on a loop. And I'm just seeing the same version of her over and over and over and over. Albeit a formula and a version that worked very well and propelled her all the way to the main event of WrestleMania. Absolutely. But a loop nonetheless. And let me just talk about this with her shattering glass ceilings. I've been hearing about women shattering glass ceilings in wrestling since I started watching wrestling nearly 30 years ago. All right. I understand that the women have graduated from sex symbols to actual legitimate in-ring performers with the fans taking them seriously. And absolutely, I don't want them to go backwards. I'm all for the women in WWE continuing to push forward and move away from the sexual nature, right, of what really hindered their development. It was a big factor, was that. But I don't want to hear any more about glass ceilings. Please, spare me. What glass ceilings? And who put them in place? The fans? The company? There's nothing left for the women to do that the men already haven't done. Okay? And by the way, it's the fans that make this happen. It's the fans that allowed Becky Lynch to do what she did. The fans did it. All right? So she's not really responsible for it. The fans decided, hey, this is our girl. This is our woman. This is who we want to main event. This is who is, and at one point, Becky Lynch was arguably the most popular wrestler in the entire company, men included. Okay, so the glass ceiling analogy is long gone. All right, but she did achieve a lot, and I just feel like I'm watching her on a loop. Something needs to change with her. Something does. Maybe it is just having her drop the belt and Liv Morgan goes on and has a championship run until we have Rhea Ripley come back. I still believe that that's the best option. A long run with Becky Lynch as champion makes no sense. For me, we've been there, done that. But okay. We then get Kairi Sane and Dakota Kai versus Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark versus Maxine and Ivy Nile versus Kaden Carter and Katana Chance in a 4-way for a shot at the women's tag team titles. This match with all 4 teams went 9 minutes and 15 seconds. And we had, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark win. So that's fine. Okay, we have tag team title contenders. Sure. Sounds good. I'll believe it when I see it that this is consistent. All right. We've got then Drew McIntyre showed up after Kaiser made his exit, and McIntyre said Adam Pearce decided not to use one of his biggest stars on Raw and said the people want him and he would give himself to them. McIntyre called Damian Priest a paper champion and said he is spreading himself too thin like Rollins did. McIntyre said he would beat Priest soon, and that's kind of it. And Chad Gable was talking backstage with the Creed brothers. Otis said he apologized to Sami, and so I mentioned that earlier with the Otis and Chad segment. We had then the main event, Gunther versus Jey Uso in a King of the Ring tournament semifinal match. This match was 17 minutes and 40 seconds with Gunther beating Jey Uso after he put him in a submission hold and couldn't answer to the referee, who lifted his arm and it dropped to the ring, dropped to the mat, and the referee called for the end of the match. He called it and said that's it. So it was a rush. It seemed like a rush finish. I mean, the finish happened and then like they immediately went off the air. So they must have kind of lost track of time. But I really, this was a very good match. Again, the ending was surprising. I have no issue with Gunther winning. I actually have no issue with either man winning. It's kind of a victory no matter who wins. It just, I was thinking for storyline purposes of Jey versus a potential Tama Tonga, that would be a lot of fun. But again, they may go Gunther Randy. It seems to be maybe the place they're going, or it could be Gunther Tama Tonga, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. There'd be very little interest in that, in my estimation, but we'll have to see. Overall, the King of the Ring tournament, I'm glad it's coming to a close. This is a very long tournament, maybe one of the longest in 10 years or more. It felt incredibly long. Yes, at times a little laborious, but you know what? The shows had structure. The shows had meaning. The shows had a direction. And sometimes that's what a show needs to feel like it's moving things along, is being cohesive and having the kind of the skeleton of where we're going, the outline of where we're going for the show. And so, they're kind of back to business as usual without a tournament starting next Monday night after the King and Queen of the Ring PLE. But guys, great time to go on Patreon and get yourself an ad-free experience, not just because everything's ad-free and not just because you get a 7-day free trial, and that includes everything, wall-to-wall coverage for King and Queen of the Ring for free, ad-free, but also you get to connect with all of the other WWE podcast patrons in a separate Discord server that I'll give you the link to once you join. If you haven't gotten the link and you're like, hey, I didn't get that, shoot me a message on Patreon. I will send you the link to the Discord server. So you can also go to Apple Podcasts and get yourself an ad-free experience there. If you just want to use your Apple Podcast app and not be bothered, that's all available to you. And tomorrow should be the mailbag, although you guys know how that goes. My exhaustion level has been pretty high lately. So we will see. I'll do my best. That's all I can promise. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.